Right. So we are live in the Insiders Group. I'm really excited about the interview we have today because I think the person I'm interviewing today, her story reflects very much the same as many other people who are in the group, and also really reflects my story too. I think we all have a very similar path. And what I want you to do is sit back, listen carefully, take some notes, take some action steps based on this, and continue your journey. And hopefully, I'll be interviewing you one day as well. So I'm going to introduce Kimberly John-Burns. Now, she might look familiar to you because a little while back, I actually interviewed her and her husband when they had their story to share in regards to their first real estate transaction. And now she's going to share her journey as an entrepreneur. So, most of you know that I always push this idea of having multiple streams of income that are uncoupled, very diversified, so that you have money coming from different areas. And this shows you that you can do both. So she's going to talk about her entrepreneurial journey now. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. And I got to give a little background on how we met, because it was very interesting how we met. And then you can kind of share, from there. So your husband, Rasheen, now husband, when I met Rasheen, I actually met him. Now, he said I met him because of you, and I had never met you. So I also have a
because of Chris Carter.
Exactly. So you had a personal trainer,
yes.
Chris Carter. Chris Carter was a student of mine in my martial arts school, because I also have a martial arts school. And I guess he spoke to you about the class I was teaching, and you told your not husband yet, Rasheen, that he should check out the class. And he came and he trained with me. And then when he found out I also taught financial, stuff, he was like, I can't do the class, but Kimberly, she'd be better to take the class so she can take the class, and then we'll both benefit from it. So I think you took my class in 2017, if I'm correct. So, okay, let's talk about that. What was that experience? What made you take the class? What were you thinking while you were in the class?
Well, like you said, I ended up taking the class because Rasheen wanted me to take the class, because he was unable to make your class because it was on Sundays. And I basically said, no. I said, I'm not taking that class. I had no interest in financial freedom, in being an entrepreneur. I was a corporate girl. I want my biweekly check. I'm good to go. I don't need this world. And it just seemed so far-fetched to me. But he asked me, he paid for it. And he said, I just need for you to go and bring the information back to me. I just can't make Sundays. And I said, okay, fine, no problem. I'll do it for you. And that's how I ended up in your class. Completely unconvinced.
Wow. So, okay, so let's just go back a little bit further then, because we got to see what led you to that point, because you said you were a corporate girl.
Yes.
What was your early background like? Because clearly nobody pushed entrepreneurship to you when you were young.
No.
So something steered you to the corporate world, and that's where you were content. Like, what was your early upbringing like?
So I was born and raised in Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn. I lived with my parents in my grandmother's home, middle-class family, heavy church every Saturday and Sunday. Sunday particularly, and Sunday we went to church every week. My grandmother made sure she took us to church. Saturdays was Girl Scouts. Saturdays was gymnastics, pretty sheltered, but this was our life. And I was a part of a lot of different church organizations, president of youth organizations, that type of thing. So my mother is a registered nurse. My grandmother was a teacher, and my father was the one who worked in corporate America, particularly for Dean Witter Reynolds, now Morgan Stanley. So I ended up graduating high school. I went to Bishop Loughlin, graduated a Saturday, I think it was June 2nd of 1996, and I started working at Dean Witter literally the Monday after my graduation from high school. And I sat there and stood there for almost 20 years, different departments, different levels, of course, and different promotions, but I stayed with the company for almost 20 years after that. So that's how I ended up a corporate girl. No one in my family at that time was an entrepreneur at all. So you just knew about getting your check and paying your bills and just showing up to work on time and that whole wheel. That's it.
Okay, so you kind of got pushed into my class, not something you would have done on your own. You said you sat there and you were unconvinced. Now, for people who don't know, who haven't taken a course with me, she took my flagship course called Insider Secrets to Financial Freedom.
Yes.
And the whole point of the class is to show you a whole different world. Like, because I made the transition myself, right? From the working world into entrepreneurship and into investing. I know for a fact that there are no real transferable skills from the working world into the world of entrepreneurship and investing. And so it's a shock to most people because they just think, okay, I'll just do what I did at work. And it's a real eye opener. It's a real shock. And sometimes it feels overwhelming and daunting to a point where people will do nothing. So what made you go from, okay, I don't want to be in this class. Okay, I'm sitting in the class and I'm unconvinced, but I'm going to take notes, to, okay, I'm going to try something.
So I'll say this. When I first sat in your class for the introductory portion of it, that was when I was unconvinced. When I started to come to the weekly sessions on Sunday, you started to introduce some things that I never imagined, right? In terms of passive income. You went into different areas. It wasn't just being an entrepreneur and starting your own business. You touched on other things. And the other things was what interested me most, because those were the only things that I could say that I had some experience in, specifically angel investing. So when you tapped into angel investing, I remember sitting there and you were talking about it, and I said, angel investing, well, I lend money all the time. People's always asking me about money, but I never thought about charging interest and your whole process that you put into place. And literally, it still took quite a few years for me to try to figure out what to do in terms of jumping into entrepreneurship, because I went from corporate working at Dean Witter, then I left and went into working as a practice manager for a physical therapy clinic for a few years as well. And then from there is where I jumped into trying to tap into the whole entrepreneur realm. And I literally jumped into lending, doing angel investing is what I jumped into doing out of your class. That was what I took from it, was the angel investing.
So what was the transition like? Because I don't think you just quit your job and did it full time. Like, no. What was the transition like? What were your fears? What were your insecurities? What were you really concerned about?
So when I left corporate, when I left Dean Witter, I left for other reasons. And that was prior to me taking your class, I believe, or right when I took your class. Then I ended up working for the physical therapy clinic as a practice manager. So I was still getting a check. I was still good every 2 weeks. But I realized at some point when I moved, because I live in North Carolina, for those that don't know, I currently live in Whitsett, North Carolina. I moved from Brooklyn. So when I came out here, I realized I needed to do something else. What caused me to realize it, my son turned 18 and he left. And empty nest syndrome hit me hard, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do with my life now. He left and I had nothing else to do. And I had to dive into something, and I was scared. I'm accustomed to having my check every 2 weeks, paying my bills, knowing what I'm bringing in. Then I said to myself, I need to figure out what else is there for me to do. And the only thing from Haru's class, besides the real estate, and that came later on, and that was more of a joint venture with my husband, is jumping into angel investing. Now, I kept my full-time job as a practice manager and still tapped into the angel investing as one source of passive income. That was my first hint of trying to get passive income, was jumping into that.
So what got you over the fear of the risk that people might not be able to pay you back?
Knowing that the money, I had a nest egg, and I had a nest egg from working, all those years. And the money wasn't earning anything in the bank like you teach us. So I was a little scared, but then I started to speak to people about their need for small dollar amounts in order to start their businesses. And they were small dollar amounts to me, but huge for them. They couldn't get it any other way because their circumstances didn't allow it. And I just said, well, I will write up this promissory note that Haru provides in his class. And let me just hear what you have to say. And I kind of went on my intuition. I had them sign the documents, set up all type of things to ensure I got my money back. And I was doing pretty good. I had about 6, 7 loans going at once. I was collecting interest from about 6, 7 people, bringing through much more than I would have in a bank. So it was my first stab at tapping into passive income while I still had my regular 9 to 5. So it was scary. It was scary because I didn't know these people. Some of them I did know. Then I started to step into people that I didn't know, and everything was going good until
until
COVID.
Oh,
Yeah. So COVID happened. I was doing the loans for about a year, and COVID happened, and the same way the banks and mortgages didn't get their money, same for me. And loans started going into default. I had to set up special circumstances for people to pay me back. And it was a hard hit because there was an unexpected circumstance. Everybody was doing everything they were supposed to do. I was being diligent. I even had a drafting system, pulling the money out. I didn't even wait for them to give it to me. I set up a drafting system, pulled the money out every month, quarterly principal payments, monthly interest payments, just like Haru taught us. And everything was fine until COVID hit. And that was when I realized I need to pivot. I need an exit plan. I got to come out of this and I got to figure something else out.
Okay, but what stopped you from just panicking and saying the world is shut down? Let me just shut down too and just cower under the covers.
I had too much invested at that point. And at this point, I had already tasted what it was like to earn extra money on the side. Now I got scared, and Rasheen had to he had to calm me down quite a few times. And Rasheen, my family, my best friends, they would have to tell me to calm down because when it comes to money, I really, really don't play around when it comes to money. So when loans started to default, I definitely did get scared. And it took me a little while to calm down, to readjust, set up new payment schedules for those that just couldn't do it at the time. I eventually got back the majority of my money, and I did take a hit. Some people ended up in collections. It was a thing. It's a risk because Haru again says you take risks and you will lose money. And it was a lesson I had to learn. Unfortunately, it was a circumstance that no one had control over. But up until that point, it was going really well.
Okay, so I'm going to stop for a second and kind of put these into action steps so that people can kind of follow your model. So The first thing you did was you had to learn some new information.
Yes.
Right? You had to learn new information so you could develop a new set of skills.
Yes.
To just try to jump into the world of entrepreneurship without this change of mindset, without this change of perspective, without this change of skill set and knowledge, I don't think most people will succeed. And I think that's a big mistake that most people make. They just say, oh, I'm going to quit my job and I have a hobby or I have a passion. I'm going to pursue it without first learning the difference between, because most of your life is spent being taught how to be a good employee.
Yes.
Nobody teaches you how to be a good entrepreneur.
No.
So unless you have someone, and not just anyone, somebody, and I tell people this too, not somebody who did it 20 years ago, because the world changes so fast. If you don't have somebody who's actively investing or actively in business, trying to teach you how to be successful today, then you're setting yourself up for disaster. So you did that first. You took some training, even though it was, outside of your comfortability. You took it and you listened.
I did.
Then you started acting on the things that you gravitated to that made sense to you, right? That were doable, things you could take action steps on immediately and create passive income. So when we talk about passive income, interest income is one of those ways that it gave you the freedom to still try to generate earned income while you were building this passive income stream. So that was important. You had an uncoupled other stream of income in case one went down, or it didn't build anything. You still had some income coming in initially.
Yes.
And then the thing that you mentioned that I think is critically important that people don't get, when you hit that point where things weren't going the way you expected, you had family and friends to support you.
Yes.
That is so critical. And I've been there. I've been to a point, I lost so much at one point, and I was considering getting a job. I haven't had a job since 2004, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when the last Great Recession happened, I lost so much. I literally lost millions of dollars. So some people complain about a couple $1,000s. No, I was millions of dollars. I was literally millions of dollars in the hole,
right?
And couldn't figure out how to turn it around, because when you have that kind of weight on you, it's hard to think.
It's hard to think.
Oh, so hard. And I thought about getting a job. I was sitting around. I told my wife, I said, I can't even write my resume. I don't know what to do. And she said, job? Who can pay you what you're worth? And that was the boost I needed. And sometimes your family and your friends are the ones who are going to get you over that emotional hurdle so that it can clear your mind to think about, okay, how am I going to think my way out of this and create a new strategy so I can pivot?
And that's critical.
Yeah.
It's critical. A lot in the beginning of me doing all of this, I really didn't tell many people. And that's because I was brought up in a space where you didn't tell people your business. So my business was literally my business in my head. Mm-hmm. So I shared it with Rasheen, a couple of very close people only. So fortunately, those people were the ones who said, okay, breathe, breathe, breathe. Are you dead? Are you dying? Right? Are you eating? Do you have shelter? Those were the things I needed to hear for me to calm down, fall back, and now re-strategize. I had to figure out what was next. Now, there is another step in there that I missed, because in the process of me having these loans and me wanting to make this a solidified business, I did end up getting a business coach as well. So I had truly took your class, which tapped into it. I hired a business coach to help me lay everything out, so I knew exactly that I was putting all my ducks in a row, because I didn't have time or money for anything to go wrong because I skipped a step. Mm-hmm. Now, although your book gave me all the information that I needed, someone like her had an actual business coach, Tip Jones. She helped me figure out and lay out everything that I needed for the angel investing business. But then COVID happened, and we were still trying to figure it out. Her and I was still trying to figure it out. And then I had to pivot. I pivoted and I ended up where I am now in financial wellness.
Okay, so let me just say one thing that's important too. People think that you lost and you really didn't lose, because every loan that defaulted is a tax write-off. It's funny when people default on their credit cards, the credit card company says, you don't want to charge off, do you? And they don't understand what a charge off is. That just means that it's an unpayable debt, and that the creditor gets to write it off on their taxes.
And that is what I did. Yes.
Exactly. So when we talk about risk, you're risking what? Like, it's hard to lose. When you're on this side, it's hard to lose. If you just have a job, you lose your job, you lose, right? You get some unemployment for a while. But when you're on the other side of it, you don't really lose. It just shifts over in how you win.
Agreed. And that is exactly what I did. And I had to brush it off. It took me a while, though. Every once in a while, I get that, that gets me so angry. But then I just let it go, because I say, okay, Kim, wrote it off. Let's move forward. And that's what I did.
So you decide to pivot. Okay, so we're in the midst of a pandemic. Everything is shutting down. The businesses you lent to, they shut down. And you said, I have to make a pivot. And you pivoted. It would seem like you pivoted to a direction that doesn't make sense to most people. Most people would have said, I'm staying away from this whole financial thing because there's no money moving. That's what people believe. There's no money moving.
Right.
What made you decide? And let's just talk about it. So you have a company, we see your shirt, Common State Group.
Common State Group.
Right, Common State Group. And you've become a financial and budgeting guru.
Yes.
Right? So what in the world made you pivot in that direction?
I was speaking to my business coach, and we were really trying to lay things out for the lending, the angel investing. She was expressing to me a personal financial issue that she was having, just a question. And I was listening to her very nonchalantly, and I answered her. I said, well, why don't you do A, B, C, and D, and then do E, F, G? And she just stared at me. We were on a virtual call, and she just stared at me, and she said, I don't think I've ever heard anything like that before in my life. And I said, what do you mean? She said, Kim, this is what you need to do. So it was her who actually caused me to realize that I had a skill that people needed. And I didn't know, because in my head, I learned how to budget from very young, watching my grandmother every month with her accounting ledger. She sat with her accounting ledger every month. She had 2 brownstones in Brooklyn, so she had a lot to manage. And she did. She listed all her bills. So I learned between her and my mother how to manage my finances. So why would I think no one else is doing this? I never imagined it, that no one else was really doing it, until I realized that whatever advice I gave her was what made her realize that you need to do this. And that's how the pivot really occurred. I didn't take it on at first. I was like, yeah, okay, right. And I walked away, told Rasheen. He says, exactly, you know how he is. And I said, nah, I mean, come on, how can I really capitalize on this? This doesn't make sense. Until I started to talk to her more in our sessions, and we laid it out, and that's exactly how the pivot happened.
Now, you said something, it's funny because I often took certain things for granted from my childhood, but then you said, if you're doing it, most people must be doing it, but think about where you learned it. You learned from your grandmother, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who has a grandmother who has 2 brownstones, who has a lot of money to manage, who manages it well, and then shares that with their grandchild, right? So it's funny how we make certain assumptions that people should know certain things, but I never learned budgeting in school.
Right.
And I'm talking about, and I have a master's degree. I didn't learn it in public school. I didn't learn it in college. I didn't learn it in grad school. I didn't learn budgeting at all. So
this is what I realized later. I started to realize that, and in talking to more people and getting feedback, I realized that no one really, you had a few that knew what I knew, but a lot, I mean, it was so many, I was in disbelief. I really didn't know. I guess I was pretty blind to that whole side of it. But she sat, budgeted her money. My mother did the same, and that's what my sister and I learned, and that's what we knew. So to be able to put that into to create a whole strategy behind that is what I literally do right now.
Now you have, I'm going to read a quote from your bio, right, that I love, that I think really sums up how and why you were able to pivot. So you grew up on this. It says, spend wisely, enjoy life while doing so, and empower others to do the same.
That's right.
That's such a powerful statement, because most people, first of all, they think it's an oxymoron to spend wisely and enjoy life at the same time. And so to be able to teach that skill, most people are like, if I'm going to spend conservatively and not really enjoy my life to the fullest, because they think if you enjoy life, that means you have to spend exorbitantly. And then for you to have that skill, and then, to be able to empower, not just share, to empower others with the information, to me, that's a phenomenal business model, because it's not just, okay, where can I make money? It's how can I help others do the same? So, all right, let's see. So you decided to take this on, and that's your mantra. What'd you do with it?
I decided to take this on, and I had to build it. I had to build the website. I had to build the whole marketing scheme, which really, I'm telling you, I was petrified to start my Instagram page. Petrified, because that means I was putting it on full blast. And a very, very personable person. I don't really talk my business, but let me tell you something. If you're going to be in this business, you learn to open your mouth. You learn to network. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. If you want it to be successful, you kind of have to put yourself out there. And I had to become very uncomfortable in order to get to where I am right now. So I sat down, I laid everything out. I started to have more conversations with people. I joined a network of women that are in the same field, and not the same field. They're all entrepreneurs, multi-hyphenates, trying to figure it out as well. So we were all trying to figure it out together. And I just started doing one-on-one individual coaching for budgeting.
Mhm.
And the clients will call me, they'll tell me their story. I call it financial therapy because they literally unload on me why and how they ended up in the situation that they're in. But it takes a lot for them to even reach out to me in the first place because they're scared. They're scared about what I may tell them, what I may show them. Because what I tell all my clients is when I show it to you and you see it, you cannot unsee it. I'm going to show it to you and you'll never forget it. And it's going to be embedded in your head and you're going to be upset with yourself. You're never going to want it to happen again. And you're going to want to fix whatever it is that caused this issue in the first place.
So, okay. So in your business model, do you do workshops? Do you do courses? Do you do one-on-ones, corporate? Like, what is your business strategy in that regard?
I started out just doing one-on-one and couples coaching. So I would get couples as well that needed financial budgeting and savings help. Then I went into teaching a financial kids class. I teach from the ages of 10 to 17, 10 to 20 really is right. Currently, I'm doing a summer session that are 17 to 20-year-olds. I teach a kids class now in how to earn, how to save, and how to budget. I'm teaching them from now. And I also am I'm also teaching corporate workshops as well to financial wellness.
So you have a very broad market, and you're teaching kids. How young do you think is too young?
I don't think anyone is too young. I've actually had parents come to me and say their child is pretty advanced. They get it, and they're about 8, or they're 8 years old. So I adjust the curriculum for the age when I use my examples and things like that. But the youngest I've had right now is 9. I've had a 9-year-old. So, and they got it. And they were very interested in what I had to teach, because what I'm teaching is things that they see every day. They just understanding that money doesn't grow on trees. Okay. You know, how to understand the things that you want. Do some research on how much it costs. All these kids have tablets and phones now. Before you ask mom and dad for those Jordans, how about you look up for a hot minute how much they cost, if you could get a coupon for it. I'm teaching not just, I don't teach anything about investments. I don't teach stocks, bonds, things like that. I'm teaching the core of it all: budgeting, savings, and how to prevent yourself from going into debt.
So, okay. So you're catching the young ones. How old is too old?
Well, for this financial kids class, 21 is it.
21. Okay.
21 is it. I said 17, but I'm realizing that right now in this summer session that the 21-year-olds, because they're in college or they're getting their first job, that's where you want to catch them. Because I've heard so many stories in my one-on-one coaching of adults that ended up in heavy debt or filing bankruptcy in their early 20s. So if I can get them at the age of 21, or from 10 to 21, then let me try to show them that you can get a credit card, but you have to pay it back.
So you're teaching them how to live the lifestyle that they want at that age, but responsibly. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So it sounds like you're doing things a lot different from what you did the first time. Like, what are some of the distinct differences you think that you thought about and put in place this time that you didn't when you started the last business?
Okay, so what I did was I made sure I had a management system. I do have a management system in place, a software that I purchase and I pay for every month to keep everything in track, and everything is for auditing purposes. It's in a management system. I did not have that.
You want to share the name of the system?
Yeah, HoneyBook.
HoneyBook.
Okay. HoneyBook is the name of the management system. It's a really good one. It's not expensive per month, and it helps me create my contracts, my schedules, to set up appointments. It helps with all of that. So HoneyBook is the system that I use for that. I also have an attorney. Now, I have an attorney. I did have Legal Shield. Legal Shield's cool, but when you start getting into defaults and things like that, you need an able body. So for this part of what I'm doing, I do have an attorney. But you have to get an attorney from whatever state you're in. I'm in North Carolina, so I have an attorney out here, Rainice Taltoin. That she's my attorney. I also have a drafting system. So whenever a payment is necessary, I draft the money. I'm not waiting for you to really pay me. I'm just setting up the payment and I'm drafting it. It's all through HoneyBook, but I also have Pay Simple as well. So I use a lot of different.
What was the last one?
Pay Simple. Pay Simple.
Pay Simple. Okay.
Pay Simple. Yeah. So I utilize Pay Simple as well. Canva is my go-to. I use Canva for a lot of things. It's a great tool, inexpensive per month as well. So I had all of these things I realized I had to pay for. I had to pay for monthly subscriptions for, but it was worth it because I was able to manage my process better. I was able to post and do marketing for myself. I set up my own website. That was not easy.
Okay,
But
I'm putting all this in the comments. Would you set your website up with?
A Squarespace.
Squarespace? Oh, wow. Okay.
So I set up my website on Squarespace. The website.
I like your website. It's funny. I would have believed that it was done professionally. I think you have a great website.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. No, I did that website myself. I set up the website myself. So I set up my own website as well. That's about it. I want to say those are the things that I really say that I need. Canva, my website, the whole marketing of it all, and the management system. The management system helps me a lot. The reason why I got the management system as soon as I could, and this was through advice from my business coach as well, is you don't want to wait till you get an influx of people to now want to implement a management system. You want it to be that you have it set up already. So when the money starts coming in, everything is already set up. All you got to do is send the link and everything is just being processed through the system that you're paying like $10, $15 a month for.
Okay, so all right, I got to break this down again. So we saw the preliminary stuff and the things that get you the confidence, but then you have to put systems in place. And you kind of simplified the whole thing into a management and marketing system. But you really have all the four components of a business. You have an operating system because you know exactly what you want to do. And I suggest, I believe you probably did, you have it written somewhere so that it is an actual system and not a day-to-day. Of course, it's organic and it will change as you learn new things, but you have a guideline for how you operate the business. You have a financial system, how you pay things, how you receive money. So you have a finance system. You have a marketing system so that you know how you're going to generate new business. So Canva is a tool you use, but you also talked about Instagram and in other ways. So you have a marketing system. You call it putting yourself out there, but that's what marketing is, right?
It's right. It's so true.
And the thing that you hinted at but didn't talk about is really your people system in terms of hiring and your what do you call that? Something management. Oh wow, why is the word escaping me? HR, your human resources system.
Right.
So you said you hired an attorney, you said you hired a coach, but you had to have an idea of why you need them, who you need, why you need them, and how you need to implement them. So, you have all the four systems that any business needs, which I think you didn't put in place the first time. You didn't have all those systems working synergistically. You didn't have all those systems documented totally the first time.
No.
But now you did. And you didn't mention, when did you leave your job? Or did you leave your job?
Oh, okay. So I actually went full throttle entrepreneur in the beginning of, I think it was the beginning of 2020. 2020, which was weird because it was the pandemic, but I figured it was the best time for me to really try to develop it. Everything was slow, so let me try to develop it then. So it was January of 2020. Wow. And that's when I went full throttle entrepreneur. And then I didn't actually start my Instagram or social media until, no, I'm sorry. We're in 2022. I started in January of 2021. was when I went into the entrepreneur realm, January of 2021. And I didn't start my Instagram or any of that until about April. That was when I actually pivoted, had everything up and running. And that's when I finally felt confident enough to put it out there.
Okay. So you're on track, you're making progress, you're doing things, you have these systems in place, you're testing everything out. What is your vision for the future of the business? Or even beyond this business? Like, what do you see for yourself?
Well, currently, Financial Kids, I'm in the process of trademarking the same way, and I learned that in Haru's class as well. I'm trademarking Financial Kids, and I'm hoping that to be able to get into more schools, to actually get into the school system, as opposed to teaching it virtually on my own, to be in the schools. That's what I hope and pray for. I want to be able to teach the kids as much as I can. The individual and the couple coaching is still great. When they want to get the one-on-one help, that's fine. To be in more corporations would be another major future goal for me. What's happening, in the research that I've done, the next generation is coming into the workforce and they have no idea how to handle their paychecks. They're being told to sign up for 401ks. They're being told to, I know how you feel about it. I know. They're being told you need to sign up so you can get the stock purchase plan. They're being told and thrown so much, and they have no idea how to even balance their checkbook. So by being able to provide this type of workshop for new employees or just employees in general, it would be instrumental. And even to teach Financial Kids in the corporations for the employees' kids. That is the realm of where I would love to be able to go.
Okay. So I see we don't have a lot of questions. If you have questions out there, please type them in the comment section. And I'm sure Kimberly will be glad to answer some of your questions and concerns, because I know we have a lot of new entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, and even some entrepreneurs who've been out there who are struggling a little bit with a few things.
Right.
So if you have a question, please type it in the comment section. But I'm going to ask if you had some advice for someone who wants to make the transition from being in the business world, corporate world, blue collar world, whatever, the working world, and they want to make that transition into becoming an entrepreneur. Because a lot of people say, I have a passion, or I have an idea, or I just want to leave that world and take my life into my own hands. What are some of the things you might tell them before they take that first step?
Before you take that first step, create a plan, of a financial plan. You cannot leave and just say you're going to pursue your dreams and you have no money. So you need to make sure you have a proper nest egg. So if you know that this is something that you want to do and you have a great corporate job, or whatever the blue collar, whatever the job is, the 9 to 5, set yourself up on a plan for a year, 2 or 3 year plan of saving a certain amount of money before you take the leap. Then also start the business while you're working, as long as time permits. If time permits, start to dabble in whatever it is. If you're making jewelry, or if you're doing video editing and production, whatever it is that you're doing, try to dabble in it while you're doing it full time, and just to see. So if anything breaks, you still have your 9 to 5. It's what I did. I started Common Stake in 2019, and I didn't fully stop working full time until 2021. So that's to tell you, I had almost like about a 2-year plan. Make sure you have a financial plan. Get into a network of entrepreneurs. Find a business coach if you can. Take Haru's financial freedom class, and don't just jump into the water. And another thing that Haru said in his class, and I'll mention it, I always remembered it because I had a lot of people that I knew that just wanted to pursue their dreams. And there's nothing wrong with pursuing their dreams, but Haru always said, find out what the need is first. So if there's a need and you could fulfill the need, then that should be what you go into. You know, if you want to be a photographer and that's your dream, that's fine, as long as you know for sure you can make the money. But if you can fulfill a need and you have a skill, then that's what you should pursue.
That's great. I agree 100%.
I always
I just want to Terry Hess. She took my first financial freedom class in 2004.
Ooh.
And she's in the group, and she said, "Love this. Thank you so much." And she asked for your website, so I typed it in the comment section. Really happy to see she's still here. So I have people who've been around, since 2004. It's the first time I started teaching financial classes. So
it definitely was the stepping stone for me, because like I said, I was not. You could never. I remember doing a vision board years ago with my girlfriends, and they all wanted to be bakers and do all kinds of things. And all I wrote was, just give me a job, show me the job, and give me the money. I could do anything as long as you teach it to me, and that's fine. And it's the truth. But I never imagined being an entrepreneur on any level at all possible. So your class definitely was a stepping stone of introducing different types of ways of earning passive income, which was really great.
So what I'd like to do, because people are asking now about, I typed your website, but how are all the different ways that people can reach you? What's your social media? Do you have email? Like, what is tell everybody all the ways that they can, because there's a lot of excitement now. I see people are, asking about, okay, I have kids, and I want them to do this.
Right. So you can go to commonstategroup.com. My Instagram and everything is on there. But if you go to Instagram and type in Common State Group, you will see a picture of me. That's the picture, and that's me. Common State Group. On Facebook, again, Common State Group. And yes, I see the question about 15. Yes. So this is a summer session that's going on right now. The Facebook user is asking about enrolling her 13 and 15-year-old boys. I'm currently teaching 17 to 20-year-old boys, which I love because I have boys. My son's a boy, so it's second nature to me. But I have my next session will begin in the fall. I usually teach on Saturdays from 11 to noon, 6 sessions, and you can get the information off my website though.
And you teach virtually, right?
I teach virtually, yes.
Okay, because you're in North Carolina, but I know specifically this person is in New York, so it doesn't matter anywhere in the country. What about international? What if somebody's in Canada?
Yeah, I've actually had a few inquiries from Trinidad, Bahamas. Wow. So yes, no one that has actually enrolled, but it doesn't matter. It only becomes a slight issue in other countries with the currency, but the process is still the same. The ideology is still the same.
So let me ask you this: are you considering packaging your stuff? Because some people just can't make the time, right? They just can't be there. I know some people on the West Coast is really just to be on the West Coast is challenging sometimes. But are you considering, and maybe I'm just kind of pushing you there, packaging it so that it can be something that people can do on their own time,
yes,
self-directed? Okay.
I am, and it was mentioned to me by a few different people, but I really wasn't looking to entertain it, because even getting into this financial kids realm happened by mistake. A friend of mine was homeschooling, and she was actually a student of yours as well. She was homeschooling, and she asked me if I would teach her kids about finances, and that is how it all started. And now I do it on my own virtually. So I would still like to be able to have the interaction, because the interaction helps me understand if they get it or not. But packaging it, yes, I have been thinking about it and probably be working on it for next year.
Oh, good. Let's see. Do we have any more? We don't have any other questions out there. Any parting words or words of wisdom you want to share?
Like I said, I would tell anybody to make sure you have a plan. It is a scary process, and I'm sitting here. I'm telling you that I definitely I never thought about doing anything like this. So I'm grateful to Rasheen for pushing me to take this course. And the financial freedom course definitely is a great stepping stone. If you could get yourself a business coach, that would be extremely helpful. Make sure you have a nest egg. Don't just jump into it with no money. There's grants and things out there, then we could get into certifications, because I do have certifications. I'm a certified woman-owned business, certified minority-owned business, and disability-owned business. Once you have all of those certifications, that opens up another world.
Time out. You blew right through that, and I think that's so important. Go back and say all those certifications again and why they're so important.
So I am a certified Weeby, MBE.
Wait, no, see, you're talking like a serious entrepreneur. Weeby, what in the world is Weeby? And why is that important?
Yes. Okay. So I'm a certified woman business enterprise, a certified minority business enterprise, as well as a certified disability-owned business enterprise.
Okay, so let's stop. So being certified as a woman business and a minority business, what does that give you access to? Because it's not just telling people it's black owned or woman owned.
No,
what does that mean? What does it give you access to?
So in order to become certified in those areas, you have to apply and you have to provide certain verification that.
Wait, apply to who?
Okay, you have to apply to WBE, which is the Women Business Enterprise. You have to prove to them that you own 51% or more of your business, how it was derived. You have to provide financials, and they decide whether they are going to certify you as a woman business enterprise, as well as the same for minority business and disability business. They're all the same. It is a process. I actually paid someone to do my paperwork because it was just too much for me to do. But there are companies out there that will process your paperwork for you and get you certified. What happens when you're certified? Well, when you're certified, you get a special little emblem, a little logo that confirms that you are certified in one of those areas. And there's other certifications as well, but these are the 3 that I have, and I'm working on 2 more. But these are the certifications that I have. What does it open you up to? It puts you in a world of networking. It's a huge, huge network. You get involved, you're able to attend certain conferences. I just came back from the Women Business Enterprise Conference that was in Atlanta recently. That was an amazing, scary experience because it is so big and so vast, but the people are so welcoming and they want to know what you do. It's the way that you learn. You get a lot of different access to grants. You get access to education, certain corporate training classes. You get access to learning how to pitch. You wouldn't believe how important pitching is. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to get my pitch down, my elevator pitch, my innovative pitch. There's so many different pitches, but being a part of these different networks, it gives you access to just so much information. You pay annually for these certifications, obviously, but you do have to apply so you have to give them proof that you are whatever it is that you're applying for. And then they give you the stamp of approval. You get your certifications that I have in my background. You get the little logo, you get your vendor number, you get all kinds of things. But it is, I would tell anybody, it's a necessity. If you can't get more than one, just get one. Pick one. If you're a woman, get the Women Business Enterprise one. If you can afford to do the minority as well, do the minority. If you are a minority, whatever your diversification is, look into it. And if you need someone to do your application, I could give that name too. The company was Certify My Company. Certify My Company is the company that actually processed my paperwork. They were extremely professional and they handled it in no time during the pandemic.
Okay. Now, is that similar to the certification you need to get? The government has a certain amount of jobs or contracts they have to give to minorities and women. Does that aid you in being qualified for those type of things?
To be able to and what I noticed is to get into Target, if you have a product and you want to get into Target, Walmart, any of these major distributors, to go through their procurement department, they want to know that you have one of those certifications. Because what the certifications do is it verifies, it takes the legwork. They don't have to do the legwork of verifying if you're a women business owned business, minority owned business, or disability owned. They see that you have the logo, they see your certification number, and that check that part off for them, and you're able to now have first dibs at whatever it is that they're trying to do. And that's exactly what it does. It gives you first dibs at being able to be on their shelves or for them to take on your service. And they'll look to you first before if you don't have those certifications, you come last on the total poll. It is the truth. It is very true. Unless you know somebody, and then that's a whole nother story. But if you don't, having those certifications gets your foot in the door.
Okay. Thank you for that information. I think that was some of the most powerful information of the night.
I tend to forget sometimes that I have them, but yes, I do have all my certifications and they're listed on my website as well.
Okay, so we have a question. Tiffany Johnson, she says, at what point in the process should you start obtaining the certifications?
Oh, that's a good question. I would tell anybody, wait a year because they want to see your financials. So after you filed your first business, after you went through your accountant and you filed your taxes for your first year, you can then try. Actually, that may not even be true because now that I think about it, they wanted to know you were in business for at least 2 years. So it depends. That's why I would tell anybody to go to certify my company. They definitely will tell you if you have or you meet all the criteria for any of the certifications you're looking for.
Okay. So thank you for that question, Tiffany. Yeah. And Matthias, he's another one of my students who's doing amazing things. I'm going to interview him one day. He's amazing in so many areas of his life. He's like just had a whole rebirth and turned himself around, and is getting his sons involved also. Yeah, he said this is fantastic. Getting the kids involved and understanding finances is awesome. I know he believes that because he's training his own, children, the same way. Well, he's got a range of kids, grown and not so grown, but yeah. So thanks for that comment, Matthias.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if we don't have any more questions, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. I think you gave a lot of information.
Okay.
Again, commonstategroup.com, where you can find her social media. You can find out how to contact her and see what program she has. I think it's a very great website, easy to navigate. I was really, after this was over, I was going to ask you, who did your website? Spill the beans, it was you.
But I did it through Squarespace, and Squarespace is pretty user-friendly.
Okay. So thank you. We're going to keep up with you because, again, we interviewed you before and you were doing a real estate deal and that was successful. And now, you're an entrepreneur who's gone one direction, had to pivot, and you're still finding success. And I think that is, so inspirational for so many people that it is doable. It's doable, but you have to have a plan. You have to have the support. You have to have the confidence. And you have to know that there'll be times when some things just don't work, but that shouldn't stop you. You just kind of pivot and, keep moving forward. So
and it's important. It's definitely important. And Hiru always tells us in the class too, you have to have an exit plan. Don't sit in it. If it's not doing good and you're sinking, get out of it. Just figure out how you're going to exit. I pivoted, so I didn't completely exit, but I pivoted because I feel as though I'm still in the same realm. But his class is instrumental, guys. Financial freedom.
All right. Thank you very much, Kimberly.
Thank you. This was great.
And again, I know in another 6 months to a year, I'll be interviewing you again about some other amazing thing you're doing.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, all right, everybody. So thank you for joining us. Again, reach out to Kimberly. Kimberly John-Burns.
Yes.
Common State Group. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.